Aum Gangadipataye Namaha. Namaste. So, do not fear. Fear not this empty world. That's the beginning of the previous verse. And now this verse continues in the same mood. O aspirants who hide yourselves away, fearing this world, nothing such as a world exists. Fearing this false world, which appears to exist, is like fearing the false snake which appears in a rope. So now we hop back onto the other foot to Ajatavada again. You see what he's doing? He's going back and forth between Ajatavada and Vivartavada, views, to show us how to walk ourselves. Because this is what we must do. We see the world. The opening line of Uladu Narpadu. We see the world, therefore, we have to deal with it. We can't just ignore it. We can't just hide ourselves away in a hidey hole somewhere, Or even if we could, we would bring our world with us. All our memories, all our vasanas, or tendencies, accumulated karmic tendencies over many, many lifetimes. You just can't pack that up and leave it at home. You got to take it with you. Because wherever you go, there you are. And that's what you are as an ego. The accumulated sum total of all the karmas from many, many lifetimes. It's out of control. I mean, really, to the point where Ramana has an extremely deterministic view. And he says that everything, that every little thing that happens is predetermined. I would agree with that, except Yoga Vasishta holds the opposite view. Yoga Vasishta and many other Advaita literatures hold that one must make efforts. And yes, it feels like one is making an effort because one still has ego. The ego, in one sense, is effort. It is a computation that is all about effort, energy flow, and time. So we have to work with the ego to get beyond the ego. It sounds tautological, but it's true. These fears of annihilation, of suffering, of being isolated or misunderstood, or, I don't know, the 1,001 imaginary monsters under the bed. Remember when you were a kid? Where did your monsters live? In the closet? With your S&M gear? Or down in the basement, maybe, Or up in the attic, The ghosts and monsters of the past. They find out and seek the dark corners of the mind, and then plant themselves there. And they're very, very difficult to uproot. In fact, it's impossible. If you try to address each and every psychological attachment or identification that you have, by the time you get done with that, you'll have new ones. You'll be attached to the process itself, among other possibilities. So why get hung up on all that? Just remove the mind completely. I'm not saying, to try to kill the mind like with some material means or even with psychological means. But I'm saying to see through it. See beyond it to its source. And the way to do that is, of course, by following the mind to its root thought, which is I. I am. I am this, I am that, I am so-and-so, I am such and such, etc., etc. So when we let go of all that other stuff and just address the root thought itself, and then look for that I, where is it? Go inside, look for it. Many times in the years of this channel, I've told that story of Bodhidharma and how he had the king sit down in the palace courtyard at 4 o'clock in the morning and to find his mind. And of course, he's sitting in Bodhidharma's energy. So he's getting like completely jacked up, you know, from Bodhidharma's Buddha field. And he looks and looks and looks, and he comes out of it and says, Master, I cannot find any mind. There is no mind. There is no self. And of course, that self in that context means the ego. But then who is saying there is no self? Who is seeing that? Only the real self can see that. So the real self sees the world not as things, objects, actions, bodies, senses, or even as information, thoughts, pictures, memories, imagination. And so there doesn't seem to be any reality in those things, if you look into them. But those things are showing up. Where? In consciousness. So what are we seeing when we see the world? We're actually seeing our own consciousness. And we're just seeing these various pictures and things reflecting in that consciousness. That doesn't mean they're real. Really real. Because they're always changing. Remember the example of the finger? As it gets closer to the camera, it gets bigger until my finger is bigger than my head. That's an illusion. My finger isn't bigger than my head. But what do you actually see? So the senses are constantly deluding us. This is an obvious example, but there are many more subtle ones that we don't catch. The quality of the senses determines the world that we experience. And the quality of the senses is a direct result of our karma, our birth, janma. The astrological conditions at the time of birth determine the timing that these qualities will manifest. The waves of probability, rotations of the vortex. But we can instantly rise above all that by seeing that I am not this mind, this mechanism, thought mechanism, or whatever it is. I am the one who sees that mind. So then that shifts us to the platform of consciousness, of ajatta. Because now, the consciousness is never born. Consciousness never dies. The world appears to be born and die. When I say world, I'm including the body and the senses. So we are the ajatta, we are the unborn. We are Brahman, pure awareness, objectless, absolute, unchanging. The mirror never changes. Doesn't matter what you put in front of it. All kinds of drama or extreme conditions or situations don't affect the mirror. The mirror just goes on reflecting. Or if nothing happens, put the mirror in a box. Close the door and lock it. And there's nothing to reflect. Then it reflects nothing. But we are saying that to understand who am I, what am I, we have to go back to that state previous to consciousness, previous to duality of subject and object, where our awareness is aware only of itself. So because the object perceived is the same as the perceiver, you can't say it's a subject-object duality. It's not. It's neither duality nor is it oneness, because there is some perception, there is some awareness, but since it's only awareness that it's aware of, it's only aware of itself. So it's you ever see that symbol, the worm Ouroboros? The worm Ouroboros, O-U-R-O-U-R-O-B-O-U-R-O-U-S, or something like that, eats its own tail. And it's supposed to represent the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material universe. Comes out of nothing, exists on nothing, and then it again merges back into nothing at the end. And yet it constantly regenerates itself. How is it possible? Om Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnat Purnam Udayat Purnam Eva Vashishyate. Everything, the whole, the complete, comes out of the complete, the whole. And even though the complete emanates from the complete remains complete and is not diminished. What? How is that possible? How is it possible that this complete universe, this world, is born out of nothing, and yet the nothing remains undiminished? Well, it's only if this world is an appearance, not a substance, not a thing, not a reality at all. But it looks like a thing, it smells like a thing, it acts like a thing. Well, that's okay. So do the people who appear on the cinema screen or on the video screen. They look like people, they talk like people, right? But are they really? No. No, they're just patterns of light on a screen. So don't be fooled. You're not seeing the actual person. You're only seeing this artifact that in some small way resembles the person. I think I mentioned about the African tribesmen who, when they were shown a newspaper with pictures, in the old days, newspapers, remember how they were printed with little dots? They're called halftones. And that's how a black and white picture, is formed in a newspaper. But when these tribesmen saw the picture, all they saw was dots. They didn't see any picture. Why? Because they didn't suffer from pareidolia. Remember pareidolia? Go back and watch that video if you didn't see it before. It's a very important concept. So, because we suffer from pareidolia, we keep looking for patterns where there aren't any. And so we think we have a life and a world, but it's just the snake that is really just a rope. And we're projecting an overlay, a superimposition of our own. Om Tat Sat. Om Harihi Om.